Up next, one of rock and roll's premier guitar virtuosos tells us how he learned guitar from Joe Satriani as a teen. And he cut his teeth with Frank Zappa. And then he joined David Lee Roth after he left Van Halen. In 1986, if you'll remember, it was Van Halen versus Diamond Dave, and his secret weapon, Mr. Steve Vai. The story is coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you've ever had hour-plus arguments with friends or coworkers about the important things in life, you know, like Beatles versus Stones, or David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar, you're going to love this channel. Make sure that you subscribe below right now and click the bell so that you know when all these interviews and videos drop. Also, be sure to look us up on Patreon. There you're going to find an exclusive catalog of content you won't find here, as well as the Vintage Years collection. I'm wearing 1984 right now. It's where we celebrate 4 great artists in a vintage year. It's time for another episode of our series, Revelations. This is where artists and bands give us unique insight into their greatest songs and their greatest albums. I am so pumped about today's episode. I had an opportunity to sit down with a true virtuoso of a guitar, the chosen one himself, Mr. Steve Vai, and discuss his career from taking guitar lessons from Joe Satriani starting out with Frank Zappa, we zero in on the 86 competition when Van Halen's 5150 starring Sammy Hagar went toe-to-toe with former Van Halen singer David Lee Roth's LP, Eat 'Em and Smile. Steve Vai tells us about riding with Diamond Dave and keeping his eye on taking his playing to the next level always. This is a can't miss. Now, as we go into this interview, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses that I wear every single day. Make sure that you go directly to zenni.com after this if you're looking for glasses. You can design the best pair of frames that you'll ever experience, no joke. Not only are you able to design your own pair of glasses, you also get to add amazing features like blue blocks that protect your eyes from digital blue light that we come into contact every day. It's really helped me out. Order now at zenni.com. Here is Steve Vai.
I don't think it's uncommon in most people's life to remember periods in their life where they were, sort of monumental, moments of clarity. When I think back, I recall this one moment of clarity. I think that when it all kind of came together, I was very young. And my aunt had this little piano in her house. You weren't really allowed to touch it, And I think I was 4 or 5 years old. And when nobody was looking one day, I didn't even know what it was, Mm-hmm. And I hit it and a note came out and I noticed that to the right they go higher and to the left they go lower. And at that moment I had, I guess you would say like an epiphany of sorts, because right then I kind of understood what music was. I saw the music on the paper and I said, oh, okay, I get it. I totally get it.
Wow.
And I would, from that, I would hear music and I'd say, okay, this is how it's structured. So that's the infrastructure of the music, the creative portion of it. I remember also being overcome with this realization that the creation of music, it's an infinite process. It's anything. It's freedom. It just represented this freedom that was introduced into my psyche right at that moment. And it was really quite delicious, the feeling of it, the realization that this is music and you can create music. This is for you it's here for you to create. This is one of the gifts of life, And even at that early age, I kind of realized that I could create music if I wanted. Yeah, I didn't realize it then how it would turn out or anything, but there was an immediate attraction, So that was a very, I think, poignant moment. And the next one came, I remember, I think I was about 7 or 8, and I walked into the auditorium of my school, and there was like this kid that was like 9 or 10 on the stage playing the guitar. And it was another moment of clarity where I could remember what he was wearing. I could tell you what the place looked like, the color of the seats and everything. And I just saw this kid with this guitar, and it was slung on his body. And it was another one of those moments where I felt that thing is cool. It's an infinite instrument of expression. I somehow intuitively understood what it could do. I fell in love with the instrument at that moment. It was almost like, it was so beautiful to me, so magical. You know, when you're a kid, you have that feeling of wonder. Like real wonder and magic and awe. And but it was out of my reach in a sense. It almost seemed as though it was something reserved for special people. And perhaps I had a very low self-esteem, or but I just didn't feel worthy, actually.
Yeah.
That's kind of, it was like, wow, And it always burned a hole in my, in my pocket, so to speak, because I always wanted to play, but I just, it was one of these weird things where, it was all me though, Psychologically, I felt that in my town, if you played guitar, you were either really cool or you thought you were really cool. And I was neither, Many musicians or people are musically influenced by the music their parents are playing in the house or their siblings. And my parents were listening to like polka music. And comedy records.
Hipsters! Flipsters!
And Tom Jones.
Unusual to have fun with anyone.
Engelbert Humperdinck.
Release me and let me.
Stuff like that. But it was the only thing I could hear, so, and radio, which I loved top 40 radio.
Well, West Side Story
West Side Story was one of the ones that they had that really had a huge impact. That's when I really connected the dots with the musicality of that moment that I had. And I just was enamored with the West Side Story because it just had all this melody and historical melody.
Unlike other classics, West Side Story grows younger.
But a story and drama and ballads and intensity, and it was just so great. But I started to compose. Like all good Italian Catholic boys on Long Island, I started playing the accordion when I was like 9. Hated it. I was playing like Smoke on the Water on the accordion and stuff. The first real mentor I had, and the first profound educational musical situation I was in was in high school when my music teacher, Bill Westcott, a savant, he taught me how to compose. He taught me everything about music. I wanted to know. I loved the way music looked. I loved the way, the idea of writing it. And I was really attracted to the idea of knowing everything I can. And I had okay ears. I didn't have the phenomenal perfect pitch or anything like that that a lot of some people have, very few actually.
Well, his influence also helped you with compositional later on in
I was composing every day for 6 years. I had to come in with a written composition, not just notes and chord symbols, And Bill was phenomenal at teaching, and I wrote my first orchestra score in high school.
Yeah. Wow.
But then, my sister came home with Led Zeppelin 2. And that sealed the deal. When I heard the Heartbreaker, I said, that's it. And I went out and I got a guitar from a friend of mine for $5, and I kept it a secret, but I played. And luckily, I was just so lucky because right on my street, a few doors down, was a friend of mine, this young kid at the time, John Sergio, and he had such a vast appreciation for rock and progressive music of that period. I was only listening to Led Zeppelin, because that's all I thought existed. All I cared about. But then he turned me on to all that great music of the 70s, Queen. And Tall. Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
What a lucky man he was.
And yes.
I'll be the roundabout, the words will make.
All this stuff. So he was instrumental, and he was taking lessons from Joe Satriani. He gave me Joe's number, and I started taking lessons with Joe when I was about 12 or 13.
What a great rock and roll story, man. I mean, it almost feels like it was meant to be. What I love, though, about your story is that you were so committed to your craft. It's like that your mind opened up. I love how, as a kid, you said, I could do anything. I saw that piano, and I thought, I could do anything I want with music. But also, the 10 to 15 hours a day that you put into that, it's like Malcolm Gladwell talks about the 10,000 hours. You put well beyond that 10,000 hours.
You know, Joe Satriani was my second real musical mentor. He was helping me take the stuff that Bill was teaching me in music theory and applying it to the guitar. Mm-hmm. And plus, Joe was always a Buddha, incredible, and he was always great and shared all of his knowledge. But when I discovered the music of Frank Zappa, that also hit home very hard because Frank was doing it all. Frank had the theater, the drama, the melody, the intensity, the complexity, the humor, the guitar playing, the cynicism. It was like tears of joy when I first heard Electric Aunt Jemima.
Yeah.
Muffin Man. All that stuff, and I just absorbed everything Frank. And oddly enough, I got his phone number when I was young, and I started calling him, and I didn't get through until I was 18. And I caught him on a good moment because he accepted some stuff for me to send him, because I was transcribing and at Berkeley to train my ears. So I did a transcription for him of a song called The Black Page.
The Black Page.
He was impressed enough to write back, started putting me, he wanted to audition me for the band, but I was too young.
Yeah.
18 is, you know. So I started transcribing for him. Everything from simple lead sheets to orchestra stuff, you know. And a lot of it was guitar solos. When I was 20, the day after I turned 20, I moved to California, got an apartment right down the street from where he lived. I just started going up to the house. Wow. And it was really, I mean, every day I think about Frank, you know, and I'm not alone. You know, if you worked with him, if you're a musician that worked for Frank, there's a reverence there, because he was so brilliant at getting things out of you that you didn't even know you had in you. He was incredibly insightful that way, and then giving you a platform to do it. There was nothing like, not that I know of. I'm sure there's stuff out there, but you know, that gig for any musician that had something special that they can do, you know, Frank honed in on that and he pulled it and then he used it as a color in his own music. So he was a master orchestrator.
Well, I just might grow me some bees.
And just hanging out with Frank was, you know, there's no way to quantify the education I got there.
No question. Yeah. Well, Tinseltown Rebellion was your first credit. Tell me a memory that you remember about Frank.
Yeah, there's so many. Frank never said more words than he had to. He was incredibly insightful, and intuitive. And if you were talking to Frank, the words didn't matter. He could read your intention. You better be really careful, you know, because if you say or did anything that smacked of ego or trying to put him on the spot or something like that, man, you got it back.
Well, he called you the little Italian virtuoso.
Yeah.
Things and
but Frank was like
stunt work and guitar work.
Yeah, he would give me these things to play that probably shouldn't be never meant to be played on the guitar. And for me, though, it was great because I just would start really slow and find the best fingerings, and then you bring the speed up. And to me, it seemed like anybody can do this. Anybody can do it. if they just didn't give up. I didn't see how you could quit if you didn't give up. And as a result, he just kept feeding me all this impossible stuff that I was able to.
He just challenged you.
Yeah, that was the great thing about
Wow.
Frank.
You went from Alcatraz, which is an incredible band in and of itself, to David Lee Roth and Eat 'Em and Smile with Billy Sheehan and that singing guitar work that you did on that first record, Shy Boy. Elephant Gun.
Every minute counts when you play both sides up.
I want to jump into Yankee Rose. A tribute to the Statue of Liberty was 100 years back in '86, 100th year anniversary, but I love the interplay at the beginning. Tell me how that came about, how you and David are talking. You're speaking with your guitar.
I'm talking about a Yankee Rose.
Well, it was something I did. It's one of those quirky things about my technique. Dave and I really kind of hit it off that way. I mean, when you strip away everything, there's something in us that has a similar kind of bend, a bizarre sense of humor, so to speak. So he was, can you imagine a lot of rock stars at the time would never go for something like that. Talking guitar, talking with the guitar. It's not appropriate for, but Dave was just like, yeah, man, this is crazy, let's do it. So I think it was just an idea that, that evolved from a conversation. And Ted Templeman had a lot to do with that song. He was a great producer for that record.
I always love to read the stories of when you would jog with Dave, you'd talk about that, and he'd have security.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was, that Dave was, I would mention Bill Westcott and Joe Satriani as mentors and Frank Zappa. And Dave was probably my fourth and final mentor that really provided me with tools that you just can't get anyplace else. And one of the things, because of he's an intense guy, he was very serious and intense about his working out and being in shape. And he taught me that. That's one of the things that I got from my relationship with Dave that was vital, was you're going to go on tour for this amount of time and you're going to go on that stage and you have to deliver, to a large group of people every night. You can't mess around. You got to be bulletproof. And that was great. So we were always going to the gym or working out or climbing or running, and it was great. It was really great.
With Yankee Rose, it was such a big song.
Yeah.
Remember just hearing it as a kid and being blown away. And I love how it's kind of reintroduced to a new generation through a video game, Grand Theft Auto. I mean, that's how, how my younger brothers found it. Younger brothers, because it was on a radio station on that game. But that's a great thing about, those kinds of things. That
the dots get connected in the oddest ways sometimes.
They do. I love the guitar solo. Tell me about writing that song.
Well, it was a track that I had. I would demo songs, and I'd bring them to Dave or the band, or sometimes someone in the band would come in with a song. Billy brought in Shy Boy. On Skyscraper, Brett and Greg brought in tracks and stuff. And then there'd be some cover songs occasionally. Dave liked cover songs, which was, some of them were really great. Tobacco Road.
Oh, yeah.
When I was playing Yankee Rose for them, Ted Templeman made the Money Punch suggestion, and it's simple. What I was doing on the verses was like a riff. It wasn't quite working, and Ted said, why don't you just... And at first I thought, that's a little too simple. Then that's me, And I did it, and so that's why that whole, And the little talking bits in there and stuff. It was a great effort with everybody. It all kind of came together with everybody's contribution, and the sound of Billy's bass in that track is just it carries so much of the attitude of this song,
Man, Steve Vai is just mind-blowing. What a great human being. Leave us a comment about Steve. What are your memories of David Lee Roth's first full album, the 80s hit Yankee Rose? Share your memories of these songs and Steve Vai and his playing. Let's have a discussion below. And if you like this content, make sure to subscribe below. Hit the bell so that that way you never miss out on our daily content. We are a daily channel. And make sure to look us up on Patreon as well. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.